the magic with RuPaul's Drag Race comes from, first of all, the fact that it even exists, that on television, in this country, in this moment, Drag Race could outlast RuPaul himself.
Take over the mother-tucking world! Yeah!
Drag Race to me is this incredible celebration of, as RuPaul would say, charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. It's a show about being your best self and being the person that you want to be. It's about creativity. We can all let our hair down or put our hair up or slick our hair back, in my case. RuPaul is no stranger to controversy.
Here we go again.
And I think everyone needs to think about the fact that RuPaul is a cisgendered gay man in his late 50s. RuPaul ultimately represents a very strict idea of what drag is. There's always been a strong thread of misogyny in drag.
I don't care if you're gonna give me your hog body line or whatever it is.
There were many times that RuPaul has stuck his foot in it with the transgender community. I mean, the most well-known one was,
"You got she-mail."
And RuPaul has a tendency to shrug these things off, but there is a community that's saying, wait a minute, you have your own privilege as a cisgendered man. In this conversation, RuPaul to me feels like a real relic.
We are living in desperate times.
Drag Race comes at a time in our history when there have been a lot of conversations about the mainstreaming of queer culture and a little bit of discomfort about that. And I think in reaction to that, there's been a kind of queering of the culture in this very exciting way that has exploded into the so-called mainstream. On the one hand, RuPaul's Drag Race has been way ahead of the curve when it comes to LGBT rights. So, you had an episode where RuPaul marries a queen and her fiance. But I think that in terms of keeping up with where gender queerness is going, the show really fell behind. And so it's been really interesting to see it try to catch up and try to stay current with where society currently is. I look forward to a season of Drag Race where you have drag kings, where you have bio queens, and where you have just the whole range of gender expressions out there. And you have crazy performances, you have Snatch Game, you have all the things that we love about Drag Race. But we get beyond this cisgendered men playing women and into a much more fluid, much more complex vision of what gender is in our society. There's no question in my mind that Drag Race is bigger than the opinion of its host. The heart and soul of the show is really the queens. They represent what's modern, what's new, what's different about drag today. You'll get these moments that are very, very poignant where people talk about, for example, being HIV positive.
I've been living with HIV for the last 2 years of my life, and you have to celebrate life.
I think probably the biggest very special episode was Peppermint talking about being trans.
I definitely didn't think being a drag queen and a trans woman would ever mix.
I felt like that was a really big and healing moment for Drag Race and kind of brought together these disparate communities within drag.
I just have to keep in mind that it doesn't take away my womanhood.
Amen.
Watching the premiere, I was absolutely blown away by the talent of the current crop of queens.
Monet Exchange. Monique Hart. You a Hamasaki?
Blair St. Clair, she was probably 11 years old when the show first premiered. And so this is a young child in Indianapolis who's been watching this show all through her adolescence. Now she's an adult and is actually performing in the show. Where would a kid like that have had access to the richness of drag culture if not for RuPaul's Drag Race? And then you also have queens like Mayhem Miller, who have been trying out for the show year after year after year. And her performance was extraordinary, her outfit was extraordinary, the artistry was amazing.
I've waited so long for this.
I think the thing that we'll remember about this show is the way that it put queerness and gender identity at the center of the conversation and celebrated the many, many ways in which people can express themselves and be themselves.